Hi everybody, welcome. We're very few at the moment, so we will wait a few minutes for everybody to join us, and then we will begin. A few more minutes. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are. I think we're ready to start. Most of us are already here. As always, just a that you are able to hear me. I know you can see me, but I don't know if you can hear me. So let's have a hand raised or confirmation from somebody. Let's see that. Also, on the right-hand side, on the control pane, you can download the QRG and the PowerPoint, well, the PDF version of the presentation that we'll be using today for today's webinar. So you're welcome to download. Hear you fine. Thank you, Sandra. Okay, so if that is the case, let's start. So today we're only going to talk about the vasculaze, and we kind of covered the theory of the light-based energy applicators when we talked about the Lumeta and the dialysis cells. So I'm not going to talk to you about the basics. If you're interested in the basics, I urge you to download or just watch the webinars that we had for Lumeta and dialysis cell. You have all the information there. If you're still missing some basic information, you're welcome to contact me or us here in Inmode, and we will do our best to answer. Okay. So the vasculaze. The formal indications are coagulation and hemostasis of benign vascular lesions. These may be teleangiektasias that are located in the dermis, in the subcutaneous tissue, and most often targeted with the vasculaze are the leg veins. Within those, the spider veins, different hemangiomas that we can target. You can also work on port wine stains and venous lakes and stuff like that. But the limiting factor here is depth of penetration and the diameter of the vessel. Okay, so not deeper than 5 millimeters and not bigger than 4 millimeters in diameter. These are the limiting factors that we're dealing with when using the vasculaze. Just before that, a little bit about the vasculaze, because I did not, as I said, I'm not going through the light-based theory, but I do want to explain what is the vasculaze a little bit. So we're talking about a diode system. I will give you all the specs later on in the presentation. The spot size, the power, everything like that is in today's presentation, so no worries about that. But we're talking laser rather than IPL. Okay, so how do we actually locate targets? So we can actually use different views of the different vessels in order to understand what kind of vessels we deal with. So the red ones, the ones that we are actually seeing as red, are the smaller and more superficial vessels. The blue ones are the larger and deeper ones, deeper located ones. And these are, we can target to some extent, the larger, the blue ones. In any case, we're always talking about treatment of the venous system rather than arterial system. The perforated feeder veins are somewhat more complex to talk about and to treat, okay? Because the perforating veins are basically those that are approaching the skin, okay? So if this is the skin surface, the perforating vein will come like this, okay? It comes at 90 degrees angle to the skin, and therefore we cannot see it, okay? The vessels that we're seeing are normally like that underneath the epidermis, wherever they're located, more superficial or deeper. They're parallel rather than at 90 degrees to the skin. Okay, so this one we cannot see, but if we're accidentally lasing a spot where a perforating vein is located, we'll actually hear the response of the patient, because normally these are there's a lot more absorption there because there's a lot more target hemoglobin, and therefore it is much more painful. So we will hear the patient.
We have comments about the sounds, maybe
What
sound is full. Maybe.
audio is poor, sound is not very good. So I see some of you are having some sound issues. Actually, nothing was changed on our side. So we're getting from other users, we're getting information that it's fine. So I'm guessing it might be something to do with your internet connection. Participants who are experiencing audio issues, please check your audio, your internet connection. If you can connect maybe via wire rather than a wireless network, that might solve it.
A lot of echo. Okay, this is actually something to do with the. Okay, let's continue.
So I understand that. I'm sorry, but there's nothing I can do about that at the moment. Okay, so my apologies for that. Hope you can still understand what I'm saying. So we've covered that perforating vein. Yeah. Okay. So here are the specifications of the Vasculaze applicator. Okay, so the idea is that we're optimizing this applicator to target this specifically, very specific indications. Okay, so vascular lesions, specific depth and sizes. Okay, and we're using, for that matter, we're using relatively high peak power. And the reason that we're using such high peak power is because we're using a wavelength of 1064 nanometer. Okay, so in order to, when using 1064 nanometer wavelength, we're actually considering the abilities of this wavelength to penetrate to a deeper tissue, A, and B, to be absorbed by the target chromophore. Okay, so this is something that we've discussed on the previous live-based webinars. Okay, the ability of a specific wavelength to penetrate into a tissue and to be absorbed. And this time we're aiming for absorption in hemoglobin because we're treating blood vessels. Okay, so the 1064 does penetrate relatively deeper, much deeper than the shorter wavelengths like 515 that we're using in Omeka, but it is absorbed much less, and therefore we need relatively high peak power to overcome that obstacle. The spot size is fixed on 3 millimeters on 4 millimeters, so it is not something that you can actually control. It is a fixed spot size for your use, and the fluence is changed, is anything between 100 to 300 joules per centimeter square. Pulse duration is actually a function of the fluence, and you don't need to adjust the very specific milliseconds to be used, but you just need to choose between a short or a long pulse. And I'll take a moment here to explain the difference between the short or the long pulse, or the concept of a pulse duration. So a short pulse, and to do that, I always like to use my fists because I think it gives the best explanation of that notion of pulse duration. So the idea, if my fist is the fluence, let's say it's the maximum fluence that I can use, 300 joules per centimeter square, I want to deliver it at different pulse durations. Okay, a short pulse duration means that I will actually deliver that energy very, very fast. Okay, very short time, so very fast. And you can actually hear the impact, you can hear the effect. Rather than if I use the same amount of energy, the same fluence, I use 300 joules per centimeter square, still the same piece, still the same amount of fluence per area, but it will be delivered over a longer time. Okay, so this time you cannot hear the effect. The effect on the target is much less aggressive when compared to a short pulse. And this is basically the difference between a short and a long pulse. Okay, so a shorter pulse is more aggressive than a longer pulse, and a longer pulse is more gentle and should be used when there's reason to be cautious. Maybe light cooling of the light type. May be set to strong or normal. Strong correlates with 7 Celsius degrees, while the normal correlates with 15 Celsius degrees. The cooling is really helpful for patient sensation with regards to pain. But because we're treating vascular lesions, we have to consider the possibility of vasoconstriction that we don't want to create. Because when cooling a vessel too much, we will induce vasoconstriction, and vasoconstriction will reduce the efficacy of our treatment, because if the vessel constricts, less blood flows through it at that time t, and less blood means less chromophore and less absorption. So the treatment will be much less effective. And the rates by which we can work. So if you're a non-experienced user, you can work at a single pulse rate, which means you have to press the foot switch and the finger switch again and again and again for each pulse, for each phase. Or alternatively, if you're working on a larger area and you're an experienced user, you can work 1 pulse per second, and I will show it to you later on the hands-on part. So, what are the ideal targets? So spider veins and teleangiektazia, the smaller ones, 0.5 to 1 millimeter in diameter, and not too deep, relatively superficial, maximum of 2 millimeters are very good targets for our vasculaze. Purplish color on the face and legs also may be targeted, but with slightly higher power might be needed in these cases because, again, we're talking about deeper penetration and might be more difficult to actually target them properly. Also, the very, very small veins, maybe we should consider the possibility to treat them with Lumeka. So I know not all users have both Lumeka and Vasculaze. In case you do have them, you may make the adjustments and choose to treat the very, very small ones with Lumeka rather than with the Vasculaze. Okay, contraindications. So as always, with regards to contraindication, I'm not going to read each and every contraindication for this applicator that we're discussing today, but I will explain the importance of it. Okay, so you as a trainer, as a doctor, as an operator, should be very, very familiar with the contraindications. You should actually make sure that patients are aware of the contraindications, that they read the contraindications, and that they sign an informed consent form assuring that they're not suffering any of the contraindications. Okay, so this is something that is very, very important. The only thing with regards that is super important with regards to contraindication and Vasculaze is when talking about sometimes insufficiency. This comes on later, and I kind of discuss on it later on. So yeah, but this is something that I would actually make very, very specifically make sure that any of my patients are not suffering from. And it's not for me to actually make sure that they're not suffering, but they should bring like a confirmation from a doctor that actually takes care of them on a regular basis with regards to that vascular issues that they're suffering from. Okay, so sometimes insufficiency is something that you have to be aware of and make sure that your patient is not suffering from. Okay, so this is a good picture that actually shows what can we treat and what we cannot treat. So we can actually see here the bulgy blue larger veins. These are veins that we cannot target. Okay, so these are veins that are out of our reach completely. But these smaller ones we may be able to treat. Okay, we do have to understand that the small vascular lesions will reappear, especially in these patients that are suffering from a more severe vascular disorder. So yeah. Okay, so let's discuss about the pre-treatments. So generally, it is very, very similar to what we've discussed so far for all of the different applicators. Okay, of course, any irritants should not be used prior to treatment. Because we're using light-based devices, it is very, very important that your patients are avoiding tanning before treatment, because a darker patient would be more difficult. The treatment will be more difficult. Okay, so the balance between effectiveness and safety will be more delicate. So as always with light-based devices, the bigger the difference between the target and the surrounding, the easier and safer is the treatment. So of course, and we want to recommend avoid time. Anticoagulants, if permitted medically, should be stopped prior to treatment about 10 days before that. And very, very important for this treatment is to shave the hair in the surrounding tissue. And the reason is because it's double, actually. So A, we don't want to waste our energy on the hair. And B, if the hair does absorb the light we're emitting, it does two things, okay? So first of all, it wastes the energy that we don't want to do. And then second, because it's very, very superficial, it's on the skin surface, it may actually harm your patient, it may cause superficial burn, which we also want to avoid, okay? So make sure that your patient is shaving the treatment area. Additionally, we talked about suspension insufficiency. If you're a doctor, you may be able to do that yourself using a Doppler, an ultrasound system. If you're not, then make sure that your patient is coming in with a confirmation from a doctor that can perform a Doppler checkup. And we're diagnosing the target veins by pressing the veins and seeing the blood refill of the capillary of the vein. Okay, so the idea is that we want to make sure that there is a blood flow in the vessel that we're targeting. Okay, because if the vessel is not, if we cannot see the refill in the vessel, then we can actually not target that vessel. It won't be an effective treatment because what we're targeting is an actual blood flow, hemoglobin within the vessel. So the other thing is that we have to understand that some vessels will only be seen on a standing patient, and this is crucial for our treatment, okay? Because if the patient is coming in and complaining about a specific vascular lesion on the legs, and they lay on the bed and we don't see it, then we have to mark the treatment area properly prior to the treatment. And the correct way to mark the treatment area is using a white marking pen, okay, or a pencil. And we do that. It is important that you're using white so that you actually don't accidentally lay it later on your marking and then have absorption in your marking. Okay, so light does not absorb any. White does not absorb any of the light that is being emitted, and is not putting your patient at risk at all. So this is why we're using white marking pencil. Okay, and we do that, as I said, in a standing patient, just to make sure that we have all vascular lesions apparent. With regards to the treatment parameters that we're using, so first of all, what you can see here, I'm not going to go through each and every parameter as always, but you see that we are mainly targeting skin types 1 to 4. Skin types 5 to 6 normally are not coming in for this kind of treatments, because normally vascular lesions, leg veins and stuff like that are not that apparent in these darker skin types. So that's the reason why these 4 are on the table. And you can see that the lighter the skin type, the more aggressive we can be. Okay, so this is very, very important as well. And again, same goes with the pulse duration. Because we said shorter pulse width is more aggressive, longer pulse width is more delicate. The longer pulse width is recommended for the darker skin types. Okay, cooling, as we said, depending. The stronger the cooling, the nicer it is for your patient, but you have to consider the drawbacks, okay? So you have to consider the possibility for vasoconstriction, and you want to avoid it in order to provide a good treatment. So it's a give and take kind of thing. Okay. Yeah. So because we're talking laser, of course, we're going to have to use protective goggles. We need to apply ultrasound gel. Now I know that for some long pass applicators on the market, you're not using any ultrasound gel or anything like that. For us, because this is the applicator that we're using, and it is a diode system. It is designed that way. We are using ultrasound gel. Please don't try to use it without it. You will only cause more pain and possibly harm to your patient. So always ultrasound gel that should be clear, odorless, colorless. We recommend Parker's gel. And this is very, very important because this is actually tells you how to perform your treatment, okay? So the idea is that we're starting at the lowest settings recommended in the table that we saw in the previous slide, and we're gradually increasing, okay? So slowly but slowly, very, very slowly. So if the recommendations here is to start at 250 and we don't see the effect at 250, we will not raise the fluence to 280 just like that in one step. We'll increase it very, very at very small increment, okay? So 5 to 10, no more than that, until we're getting the effect that we're looking for. We will later on talk about what is the effect that we're looking for. Okay, we should hold the applicator at a 90 degrees angle to the skin surface, and we should make sure that we're holding it across the blood vessel. And the idea is to make sure that we're actually targeting the vessel in a very, very good way. So if this is if this is the applicator, okay, so we talked about 4 on 3, okay, and that is the vessel. If I will be targeting, if I'll be locating it like this, there are higher chances for me to miss the vessel. But if I'm targeting like this, 90 degrees angle, then there are higher chances for me to actually target the vessel at one point or another, okay? So it will be like this, something like that, but a vessel will get targeted. And then I will just move on along the vessel, okay? Avoiding too much pressure is also, again, very, very important to the same, for the same reason that we talked about with regards to cooling, okay? So too much pressure may cause vasoconstriction. Vasoconstriction will limit the efficacy of our treatment, and we want to avoid it. We're not performing any overlaps, but we may start pulses depending on the skin reaction and the tissue reaction, okay, and the vein reaction. So this is something that we have to consider. Yeah. So a little bit about treatment considerations, and we have two more like tips like that. And these are very, very important because these will actually help you provide the best treatments for the different types of skin and the different types of vessels, okay? So actually, again, I said that last time, I should switch the sides of this. So let's talk about the fluence first. So a higher fluence is used for the lower typing of skin types, okay? So skin type 1 to 3, we may be able to use higher fluence. We're not necessarily going to need it, but we may be able to use a higher fluence. But we will need a higher fluence for deeper and larger veins in order to be able to target them at an effective way. We should use lower fluence when treating darker skin types, just to make sure that we're not harming the epidermis. And when we're treating a vascular lesion that is close to bone, and that's, yeah, again, it's quite painful there, and we don't want to cause that too much pain. With regards to pulse width, very, very similar. Okay, so the less aggressive pulse should be used on darker skins. So lighter skins, you can use short pulse. For darker skins, we recommend using longer pulse. Okay, so the long pulse. And again, for deeper and larger vessels, we need to be slightly more aggressive, and therefore we recommend using a shorter pulse. In more superficial veins, we want to be saving the epidermis. We want to make sure that we're not causing any side effects to the epidermis, and therefore we want to make sure we will use the less aggressive pulse, which is the long pulse. Okay. Use strong cooling on darker skin, again, to the extent that it does not cause vasoconstriction. I recommend having a cooling aid at your disposal, okay? So it's very, very important that you have one just ready to use or immediately after the treatment. So it could be an ice pack, could be an air cooling system, like steamer, which I personally love, and I think is the best type of cooling for you and for your patients. We generally speaking, we're treating the deeper and larger veins first, and only then targeting the smaller ones. Sometimes treating the larger ones will already eliminate the need to treat the small ones. The only exception is when you're treating a very, very complex area, that has many layers, and you kind of need to, in order to target the deeper and larger veins, you kind of need to peel off layer by layer. And in these cases, you may first target the smaller ones, and then layer by layer, you're exposing these larger ones, and then can treat them. Okay, and this we've discussed already. Okay, so the idea is that we're not moving at very large intervals, but we're actually targeting the vessel along its path, and we want to make sure that we're placing it at different spots. So 5 to 10 millimeters intervals. Make sure that you're not overlapping. I think 10 millimeters might be slightly too long, too much. So whatever your patient needs in order to provide a good treatment. This is a short video, very short video. So you see the location of the applicator on 90 degrees. There is a little bit of gel, not too much. And you see the movements along the vessels are very subtle. So they're not, imagine if we were to move 10 millimeters along that vessel, that would be way too much. And that's it. As long as we see the response, we can stop. Okay, so we don't have to give another pass if we already see the response. We're only giving another pass or another pulse in case we do not see the response. In this case, we can already move on to the next vessel here. What are the endpoints? What do we look for when we're providing a treatment? So the first thing is blood coagulation, because this is what we do. And that blood coagulation actually appears as darkening of the vessel. And it may it may get dark blue, or actually appears as black to us. Okay, so either or. A vessel that may lose its sharp endings. Okay, so it kind of looks smudged all over, indicates a breakup of the vessel wall, and this is a good response as well. Either contraction or a shrinkage of the vessel is acceptable. We might want to add stack another pulse there if possible, if there's not an excessive skin reaction at this point already. Something that we are very commonly see. Skip the vasoconstriction and disappearance. So this is something that we see for the small ones, mainly the teleangiektazis around the nose. You can see that very nicely. So vessels may just disappear completely due to vasoconstriction. These are nice, yeah, because it's like magic. But it's not always happening, and we should be ready for the other responses as well. And erythema and edema are often seen and are good, and we should prepare our patient for these kind of reactions, okay? Because immediately after, they may see some erythema and they go, whoa, what happened? I'm all swollen and red, and that's fine, okay? So it looks like scratches, fat scratches along the vessels that we had before, and we are just, if you're preparing your patient toward that, then they know what to expect to have your patient. We may also see some bruising, and that normally is seen in 1 hour after treatment, not more than that. Just follow up and prepare your patient for that. So post-treatment, as I said, cold compressors or air cooling is recommended. Very. I never skip it, because we do heat up the tissue to quite an extent. Okay, so but as I said, we do see the erythema and edema along the vessel. And therefore, I like to not skip that part. So always apply some cold ice pack or air cooling on the gastric area. Any kind of soothing preparation may be used. Whatever you have in your premises is acceptable with me. Steroid normally is not needed, but if you see a very severe epidermal reaction, you may use it. Never have actually had to use a steroid cream on vascular patients. It is important to avoid rubbing the treatment area, hot boxes, and exercises on the 24 hours following treatment, just to make sure that you're not reopening a coagulated vessel. Of course, you can use makeup post-treatment. And yeah, again, antibiotic only in case of blistering and openings, which you normally don't get. And I think it's like, I'm not recommending the treatment for adverse events at the moment. So I recommend a treatment for an actual treatment, a post-treatment care for a real treatment. And adverse events are very, very few and should not occur. So antibiotic and steroids are, for me, are not needed at the moment. As we discussed earlier, prior to treatment, it is recommended to talk to your patient about the fact that they should avoid some of the time after the session as well, because there's always the time between the two sessions. Because we're not talking about a single session. I will show the schedules, the recommended schedule later on. Okay, so avoid tanning. Whenever giving light-based treatments, light-based energy devices treatments, avoiding sun is quite recommended. So what is the treatment schedule? First of all, we have to make sure that our patients understand that they're coming in for a series of treatments. It's not a single treatment that they just come in once and that's it for life. It's actually a series of treatments now. We're going to see them every 3 weeks, and then later on there will be some maintenance treatment, because angiogenesis is something that continuously happening in our body. So the initial treatment, normally 1, 3, up to 5 treatments sessions that may be needed, depending on the indication, depending on the area size that we're treating, and so forth. Normally, about a month between one session to the next is a good time. You may be able, you may prolong that time. It's not to say that something will go wrong, but you don't have to wait 8 weeks. Normally 4 weeks is enough. Larger deeper veins normally would require longer treatments and more time between the sessions, because we're treating them more aggressively, and therefore the relaxation time kind of thing of the body would take longer. Okay, and as we said, angiogenesis is something that continuously happens, and therefore we should make sure that we're providing the treatment not with too long gaps, but also make sure that we're preparing our patients for maintenance treatment in the following weeks and months. Okay, so a little bit of before and after. So the first one would be immediately after the treatment. Okay, so this is exactly what we discussed earlier, the erythema and edema. You can actually see that like this vessel is kind of raised from the skin. This is an immediately after effect. What you can see here is a very nice clearance after 9 months of a single treatment. So you can see different sizes of vessels and different appearances of vessels may be targeted here. Okay, so you can see the smaller ones that were cleared and the larger ones that were cleared very, very efficiently as well. So as long as you are able to adjust the parameters and diagnose the response correctly during your treatment, you're good to go. This is an example of marking the vessel. And as I said, personally, I think we should use white pencil only, but table. That's what we're having here. Okay, so you can see the very, very nice reaction of that relatively large vessel here. So 3 months after, 6 months after, we see really, really good results. And this is not the best targeted vessel, because it's slightly too large, I'll say, by the appearance. Okay. And again, very nice clearance. You see that. And again, and this is it. So I think let's see if you guys have some questions.
No.
If you don't have questions, then we will move on to the hands-on part. And yeah, so I'll switch cameras and we will move on to the hands-on part. Here we go. And you don't need to see my screen anymore. Okay, I remind you, you can download the presentation from from the right hand side, okay, on the control pane. Okay, so our patient is already waiting for us. And as I mentioned, oh, sorry, because we're talking laser and laser safety, the first thing is to provide goggles for everybody in the room. So if I'm not treating a facial area, then my patient can wear the standard goggles. If I am treating the face, then patient should be wearing the opaque glasses. Okay, so I'm hoping another thing that we may experience some difficulties with today is the screen, because the lightning that we had so far has been taken away from us. So
Independence.
apologies for that. Everything is already set up, okay? So what I don't show is what happens behind the scene. Make sure that the port is connected, that the on and off button on the back is on one. We're starting off the system with this button here. And yeah, so this is the menu screen, and we're going to choose diode, okay? So when choosing diode, system will already recognize that we're talking about vasculase rather than diode XL. And yeah, let's make some noise here. Okay, so as you can see, fluence, it's all the parameters that we've already discussed. I'm sorry for the reflection, but as I said, yeah, we will have to deal with what we have today. So we're talking about the fluence that you can control between 100 joules per centimeter square to 300 joules per centimeter square. And as you can see, I can raise it at increments of 5. So please don't increase it at like 30 joules per centimeter square all at once, because this is where you have gaps and you may see no reaction. You may go from no reaction to adverse events in a heartbeat, okay? So our patient today is relatively light skinned, and if you remember the recommendations in the QRG, or if you can look at the QRG that you have, I will actually start at about 250. She's a skin type. I can start at 225. Let's say she's skin type 2, not a 1. Yeah, pulse width I would keep short, because again she's very light skinned. And the cooling, initially I would say on strong, unless I would see that it causes vasoconstriction, and in which case I would want to reduce it to normal. Okay, so I can also do that, but I would stay for now at strong. Pulse mode, I would start with off, which is what we called earlier single actually. So each pulse, to generate a pulse, I would have to press the foot switch and the finger switch for each pulse. Or alternatively, I can work with 1 pulses per second, and as I said earlier, I recommend it for more experienced users and for larger treatment areas. Okay, so I would not choose 1 pulse per second if I'm treating facial teleangiektazis, but on leg pains, okay, something like that. So for now, I would keep it on off. Okay. So since we're still not having a real life patient, showing you the refill of the capillary of the vessel is quite difficult, and I will not show the refill, but I will show you how I do it, and you have to imagine the rest of it. We have some pretend vasculations on our patient's leg here. Okay, so these are not marking, but so today we have a marking pen, so I'm going to use it. So let's pretend we have a vessel here and a vessel here, and I'm marking off the treatment area with a white pencil. And this also gives me a very, very good indication of whether I need to lace another pulse or not, and on my progress. Okay, so I will take pictures like that, before and after pictures, with my markings, with my white marking pencil, because for next treatment, it will also give me indication on where I was and how to continue from that side. So to check the refill of the vessel, what I do is I press on the vessel in order to create vasoconstriction, and then I release the pressure. Once I release the pressure, the blood will flow again and refill that vessel. And this is what I'm looking for. If there is no refill, as we said, I don't want to treat that. I cannot treat that vessel. If there is a proper refill, then I can start targeting the vessel. So the next thing that I want to do is to apply a little bit of ultrasound gel, and I need very, very little ultrasound gel. It's not a hair removal procedure here that we're talking about, rather than. So just a little bit of gel applied on the vessel. We'll do the job here. And the next thing that we discussed is the need to, to place the applicator on a 90 degrees angle. Okay, so you can see I can either place my applicator like this along the vessel, which makes more sense because it's very easy to miss the vessel like that, or I can locate it like this, okay, 90 degrees, crisscross on the vessel, and that way, even if I move a little bit, I will most likely target the vessel at one point or another. Okay, so then I start off with a test, with a skin test, to see the skin reaction and the vessel reaction, and I would slowly increase the fluid. Okay, and what am I looking for in the test? I look for one of the responses that we've discussed earlier, so darkening, constriction, erythema, edema, or complete disappearance of the vessel. And I want to make sure that there is no any unwanted effect. Okay, so that would be an excessive erythema or edema, a blister or something like that. Okay, so here we go. I give one pulse, and I actually look for the response now. And in real life patient, my very first test spot I would have to wait 15-20 minutes on the lighter skin types. On the darker skin types, I recommend that you wait 24 to 48 hours due to delayed response, and this is very, very important. Okay, so do not skip that part. Do not think that this is just a waste of your time and your patient time. This is very, very important. You see that on the darker skin, the delayed response, and you don't wanna accidentally treat a full leg that will the day after develop that delayed response and blistering. So make sure that you're working by this rule. Okay, always provide that skin test. So now that I see that I don't have the skin reaction, an excessive skin reaction, and I see that I have good enough response, I can continue my treatment. And I would continue my treatment, as I said, if I'm having a relatively larger area, I can move to 1 pulse per second. So I will do that and provide a more an easier treatment. And this is how it's done. Okay, so another thing that I want to make sure, and we discussed it, is not to press too much on the vessel in order to avoid vasoconstriction. When I see that there is a good enough response, I can stop at this point. If I don't see a good enough response, I can stop. I can give another pass in order to get the response that I'm looking for. Alternatively, you may need to consider, because there aren't always on real life patient, what you see is different types of leg veins and vascular lesions, and you may need to adjust the parameters slightly. Okay, so a red small vessel would require less energy, and a deeper, larger one that appears as blue may require higher energy and more pulses, okay? So you're going to have to adjust your parameters to the vessel that you're treating. Immediately after, as we've discussed, we can apply cold pack, pull down the seamer. This is very, very straightforward. This is very easy treatment. It's a little bit painful for your patients, so just make sure to prepare them. I think it's very, very clear. If you have any questions, now would be a very good time to ask them. If not, and if you come up with questions later on, you're welcome to contact us. You can, again, I remind you, you can download the QRG and the presentation on a PDF format. And thank you very much for being with us today. Let's just see questions. No questions. Thank you very, very much for being with us. Have a really good day and see you around.
Bye-bye.